Thank you, Clay, and good afternoon, everybody. And thank you for joining us today and tomorrow for this truly historic occasion for Airbus and I believe for Mobile. The inauguration of our first American US facility in Mobile has been years in making, and tomorrow, when we officially start its operations, it will mark what I believe the most significant game-changing event in US aerospace for decades. Overnight, it doubles the number of companies manufacturing aircraft, large commercial aircraft, in the United States. The new facility, will assemble all the members of the family of the A320, starting with the current A320ceo and then moving as fast as possible to the A320neo. It signifies that Airbus is truly an American manufacturer. And we have already, you will see, more than 250 Airbus manufacturing employees based here in Mobile on top of our mobile engineering activities. It also establishes the US Gulf Coast region as a new aerospace hub, one that will help generate economic growth here for the years to come. This moment highlights that Airbus is taking an important step towards strengthening our position as an aerospace leader, a global player across the globe, in addition to growing our presence here in the United States, which is, together with China, one of the two largest single-aisle markets for the 20 years to come. There will be a requirement of 4,700 new single aisles for the next 20 years from the American airlines. It allows us, of course, to establish closer relationship with our US customers and also with our US key partners and suppliers. And it creates new global growth opportunities for Airbus and throughout our supply chain. We are, of course, all very, very excited, and not just the four of us, I mean the 55,000 employees of Airbus, about what the future holds, and we thank you for being here with us for tomorrow's event. I now would like to hand over to Allan and Barry, who will provide some helpful background detail, but who were, more importantly, instrumental to the success of this new US manufacturing center. Thank you. Barry.
Good afternoon. Again, thank you for joining us. I'm going to tell you a little bit next about the A320 airplane and the family of the A320. It's what we're going to be building here in our US manufacturing facility, and I'm going to tell you why that's important. So the A320 family, and many of you will know this already, is the most successful commercial airplane program in the world. It comprises 4 different sizes of aeroplanes, but primarily it's a small, medium and large. It's the A319, the A320 and the A321, and all those versions will be produced here in Alabama. We have over 12,000 firm orders since this program came to the market in the late 1980s. We've already delivered 6,700 aeroplanes, and yet we still have almost over 5,400 aeroplanes yet to be delivered. The order book continues to be very, very strong for this aeroplane. We'll talk more about that in a moment. It really is the reference aeroplane. It's the bread and butter, it's the backbone of the world's airlines fleet. And you can see here that generally, since we came to the market with the A320, the previous market leader, the Boeing 737, has not achieved the same level of success as the Airbus A320 family. On the left, you can see a column entitled A320ceo and neo. CEO means current engine option, the airplane that we're building today in production, and the first aeroplanes that will be built here in Mobile. Where it says neo, this means new engine option. And this is basically the next development of the A320 family, coming to market at the end of this year. So we compare our current engine option plus our new engine option version versus the equivalent Boeing production, which is the 737 NG new generation today and the 737 MAX in the future. And you can see that we have managed to outsell the Boeing product in terms of orders, in terms of deliveries and very much so in terms of number of customers. The airplane is so ubiquitous that every 2 seconds of every day, of every week, of every year, an A320 takes off or lands somewhere around the globe. And by the way, that's quite a large task for us to support that number of customers and those number of aeroplanes. In fact, we've secured 54% of market share with the A320 family. When comparing apples to apples, when comparing the 320 with the 737NG, since the launch of both those aeroplanes, we've secured 54% market share. And we continue with that lead with our A320neo, playing against the 737 MAX. In fact, the numbers are even bigger. This aeroplane truly is the market leader in the single-aisle market. And by the way, here in the USA, 80% of the aeroplanes are in the single-aisle market. I mentioned earlier on this new engine option, the neo as we call it. This is basically re-engineering the aeroplane together with the sharklets that you see on the end of the wings. And as a result of those 2 things, we are achieving a 15% improvement in fuel efficiency in one step change. This means 15% less carbon dioxide emissions, or it means 15% more range, which is very important to a number of our customers here. For example, if you want to fly from the mainland USA to Hawaii. This is typical of the whole story of the A320 family. Every year we invest a lot of money in continuing developments. So when you think about it, we launched the airplane in the 1980s. You might think to yourself, that is a long while ago. I think it was a long while ago. But through this continuous refreshment of the aeroplane, and now again at the end of this year with the arrival of the neo, we continue to provide a market-leading product, and we do this at a relatively low risk, which is something that our airline customers will tell you they really like. They like to get in the A320, turn the key, it starts, and you go. And you go on time, and you arrive on time, and you do it very fuel efficiently. This is what this aeroplane is doing. The neo, even though we haven't delivered the first aeroplane yet, we've already secured almost 4,200 airplane orders for the A320neo from 74 different customers from all parts of the world, including here in North America. You can see customers on the left-hand side there, such as Virgin America, JetBlue, Hawaiian, Spirit, and of course, a key customer for ours is American Airlines. So we have a lot of customers around the world, and especially here in the US, we're looking forward to taking this first neo aeroplane at the end of this year. Now let's talk a little bit about the overall market here in North America. People think of North America and they say, oh, it's a mature marketplace. There is not the same level of growth that you see in the Far East, that you see in the Middle East or Latin America. But in fact, there's still a fairly healthy growth in North America. For a mature marketplace, we predict over the next 20 years, and this is our new global market forecast data, an average of 2.4% growth for the North American carriers in terms of number of passengers over the next 20 years. This means that North American passenger traffic is going to go up 40% over the next 20 years, which truly is continuing to be a growth market. And furthermore, since it's on a very large base, that is a lot of passengers, which translates to a lot of aeroplanes. But an interesting point here, 90% of that 40% growth is going to come on existing routes. And the characteristic of a mature market is that you're not out there starting new routes all the time. You're basically running what you've got. But as you're running what you've got, you're carrying more passengers. And so 90% of that growth is carrying more passengers on existing routes, which means the US airlines are generally buying the larger version of the airplane. In our case, the A321. In fact, almost all of our North American sales in the last couple of years have been of the A321 variety. It carries up to 240 passengers. The fuel efficiency of this aeroplane is quite remarkable, and the North American carriers have realized that and are therefore focusing on the 321. When we launched Mobile back in 2012, our plan was to open the plant with A320s. Now the aeroplanes that you saw this afternoon, those are A321s. In fact, every aeroplane we build this year will be an A321 because this is where the US market is going and it's becoming the bread and butter aeroplane over the next 20 years. In terms of total demand, according to our recent global market forecast, 5,880 aeroplanes, plus or minus one or two, will be required over the next 20 years in the North American market. North America is USA and Canada, and it's airplanes over 100 seats. Of those 5,880, 4,730 will be of the A320 family, the single-aisle variant. So it's over 80% of the airplanes that will get delivered into North America will continue to be a single-aisle aeroplane. This is the total marketplace. Obviously, we expect to split a little bit of that with Boeing. But even so, let's just assume we win our normal 60%. Then you're still looking at a production requirement of A320 family aeroplanes of well over 100 aeroplanes a year just to feed the USA alone. And so you can see very well that even at 4 a month, the Mobile facility is still only feeding a part of that large and growing North American market. We mentioned earlier on the need for growth in number of passengers, but let's also remember that in North America there's a huge replacement market. Aeroplanes like the old MD-80s, the old 737s, even our own early A320 family airplanes are going to need replacing very shortly. And there's nothing more certain in life, apart from death and taxes, other than a replacement airplane need. And so in fact, the replacement airplane need plus that growth we see in North America is what is feeding this very large number of single-aisle airplanes required here in the USA. We think there's a market for over 1,000 twin-aisle aeroplanes. In our case, it's the A350 and the A330neo, such as Delta Airlines ordered last year. And we also see a market of 150 very large aeroplanes, in our case the A380. And remember that the USA today is the single largest served country in terms of A380 movements. We have 7 different airlines flying A380s to LAX today. I think we have 5 different airlines at JFK. Over 200 A380 movements a week into and out of North America. So when people say, oh, North America is not an A380 marketplace, just remember that for everybody else in the world, apparently it is. At this point, I'm going to sit down for a moment and we're going to ask Allan to join us to talk about the Airbus Group presence here in North America. Allan.
Thank you, Barry, and welcome everybody to Mobile, Alabama. I hope you had a very enjoyable day touring around our facility. It's a most impressive Hangar 9. People say, why do you call it Hangar 9? Well, in Hamburg it's called Hangar 9, so in Tianjin, China, it's called Hangar 9. And in Mobile, Alabama, it's called Hangar 9. But it's most impressive. It's 210,000 square feet, 91 feet high. And it provides the most exciting, most environmentally friendly facility that we have in our Airbus complex of production facilities. Before I talk a little bit about the group, I saw Mayor Sandy Stimson is here, and George Talbot from the city. Mayor Stimson has been a great friend and community partner of Airbus as we put this project together over the last several years. We thank you for your support, Mr. Mayor. Dave Trent's over here, who runs our engineering center in Mobile, and the bright light for recognizing anybody else out here on our Airbus team, but I'm sure you'll meet them as we go forward. We've organized ourselves as the Airbus Group. If you recall, our holding company was called EADS, and then we rebranded ourselves as Airbus Group. So now under Airbus Group we have 3 operating divisions: Airbus, Airbus Helicopters, and Airbus Defense and Space. We've mimicked that organizational structure in the United States in that we have the Airbus Group Incorporated, Airbus Americas, that very capably run, Airbus Defense and Space Incorporated, and Airbus Helicopters Incorporated. So we've got about a total of some 3,800 employees in the U.S. in these 3 business units located here in the States. About 1,100 of those employees are Barry's under Airbus Americas. We're in 16 different states, as the slide tells you there. We're headquartered in Herndon, Virginia. That's where our Airbus Defense and Space, Airbus Americas, and Airbus Group is located. Helicopters, as you probably know, is Grand Prairie, Texas, and Columbus, Mississippi. And we're about 38 different physical locations in the U.S. Our spend in the U.S. is about $16.5 billion. Almost 15.9 of that are things that we put in Airbus airplanes. We are the largest export customer of U.S. aerospace by a very, very wide margin. So we support about 245,000 jobs, according to the Department of Commerce statistics. Now within Airbus Americas, and I'll let Barry explain a little bit more about the specific operation, but our engineering center, as you can see, is just down the road from the manufacturing facility. We have our headquarters in Herndon, Virginia, right at Dulles Airport. We have a spares center, a training center, a very nice training center in Miami, Florida. We have a downtown regulatory affairs and technical office right across from the old post office, what would be the new Trump Hotel. You can see the Capitol on one side and the White House on the other. And then we have moved our engineering center from downtown, our old town, Wichita, closer to Wichita State. And that is a very, very successful program for us in the U.S. Barry, I'm going to turn it back to you, and if you'd be kind enough to take us through a little bit more about your customer base.
Thank you, Allan. Airbus does not have many customers in the USA, but the customers we have are very big customers. In fact, they're the top airlines in the world in terms of size. So airlines, for example, like United, Delta, and American, the big three, as they're colloquially known, all operate Airbus aeroplanes. And Delta through Northwest, and United for many years have been doing so. American recently joined the parade. But of course, when American merged with US Air, then they became the single largest airline customer for Airbus anywhere in the world. So the new American, Doug Parker, Scott Kirby and the team over there, they're actually our single largest airline customer in the world. We have larger customers, maybe lessors, in terms of the largest operator today and the largest airline customer, that would be American. And very closely followed by Delta and United. We have, on the other hand, some of the smaller but very efficient and very profitable low-cost carriers. For example, Spirit and Allegiant, who are the two most profitable carriers in the USA, expressed in terms of margin. We also have Virgin America, and we also have Frontier. So the A320 is performing well in both the largest carriers and the smallest, very highly efficient, ultra-low-cost carriers. And in between, we have people like Hawaiian Airlines, who operate the A330 today. We'll be operating the A321 on mainland to Hawaiian operations very shortly. And we also have other carriers such as FedEx and UPS, currently operating our A300-600 freighter aeroplane. And up in Canada, we have, of course, Air Canada, and we have Air Transat as our major customers. In fact, there are very few, there are less than a handful of North American airlines who do not fly Airbus aeroplanes. And we're very proud of that fact. We first sold an Airbus airplane here in North America, I think it was 1988 or 89. And since then, we've grown to have over 1,300 airplanes in operation, and a backlog that is leading us towards a 40% market share in the USA. Helped, of course, by our presence now onshore here in the USA, here in Mobile, Alabama. I'm going to continue talking a little bit about the manufacturing facility, recognizing, of course, that you've seen this earlier today. But let me take you back to July 2012. Many of you were here in this city when we announced our plan to build airplanes in the USA, right here in Mobile. And here you see a picture of Fabrice with Governor Bentley, of what was truly a memorable occasion in the convention center across the road from here. So July 2012, we formally announced the start of the program. And today, 3 years later, we're celebrating the opening of that same facility. So in the past 3 years, we did the design, we've done the construction, we've done the implementation of the facility, capable of assembling aeroplanes, painting aeroplanes, testing aeroplanes, and delivering aeroplanes. And that's what you saw this afternoon. The program has run exactly on time, and we must give all credit to Ulrich Weber on our right here for making sure that we achieve this program on time, on cost, on quality, just as we like to do with our aeroplanes. You saw there's lots of buildings, lots of infrastructure required, a lot of tooling required, and of course people behind that, human resources, support processes, financial processes. It's basically a full-blown factory. In fact, everything that Airbus does back in Europe in a smaller way, we're now doing here in North America. So to pick up on Fabrice's point, we truly are a global airplane company. As I mentioned, the facility will build 319s, 320s, 321s, starting off with 321s. This is where our market is. And we're ramping up from right now at the beginning, today, up to 4 a month by the end of 2017. We have enough land available if we want to double the facility, go to 8 a month if indeed The market and the business case supports that. We're starting off with the A320ceo aeroplane, today's production aeroplane, but in 2017 we'll start producing the neo aeroplane, and we'll transition over the next year or two to all neo aeroplanes. We have 260 people already working here, pretty much all of them hand-picked here in Mobile. You probably heard some of the statistics this afternoon. About 1/3 of them are veterans here in the US. Pretty much all of them come from the Gulf Coast area. Pretty much all of them are very experienced in aerospace practices. And most of them have been to Hamburg, and you can meet some of these people tomorrow. Most of them have been to Hamburg to get trained. And our experienced Hamburg folks said, these are really good people. So we feel we're off to a good start with a very strong team, including on the final assembly line. We're also doing painting here. We're subcontracting that to our existing subcontractor by the name of MAS. We have a powerhouse, again subcontracted, in this case to Honeywell, and some of our other services will come in subcontracted. So while we say we have 260 Airbus employees, there's already more than that working here on site if we include our contractors and our subcontractors. The facility will operate under an EASA ticket. EASA is the European Aviation Safety Authority. It's the European equivalent of the FAA. All Airbus factories operate under an EASA ticket, and we will extend that ticket to include here in Mobile. And in fact, this coming week, we're receiving our first audit from the EASA folks. You've seen this. This is how the plant looks already. I was going to say will look, but in fact it looks like this already. And I'll show you a diagrammatic sketch of how it works in terms of flow process. But you will have seen in the top side there that this is taken from the west, looking towards the bay in the east. And you can see the transshipment hangar on the top side. We'll come to that in a minute. The main hangar 9, as Allan says, the final assembly hangar in the middle. The paint shop at the closest side, and on the right-hand side, the final phase, and the gauging hangar, and the delivery centre over on the far right, which we look forward to using for our first delivery next year. So the flow is rather like this. The components arrive mostly on a boat, some of them by airplane. I'll come to that on the next slide. We put them into what we call the MCA hangar, Major Component Assembly Hangar. So when you go in there, you'll see a bunch of wings on trolleys, you'll see vertical tail planes, horizontal tail planes, and most importantly, fuselage sections. They have recently arrived on the boat from Europe. And of course they dock in Mobile Bay here, just 3 miles from that hangar, put them on a truck, roll them up the road, put them in the MCA hangar. Then we move them into the final assembly line, and the first dock we call Station 41, is where we mate the front and the rear fuselage components together. Station 40, we put the wings on the airplane. Now it begins to look like an aeroplane. Station 30, we're putting the systems in the aeroplane and testing some of those systems, and we're putting the tailplane onto the aeroplane. In the dock, we put the interiors, the seats, the galleys, the labs, the cabin interiors. And then we move it outside to what's colloquially known as the carport. It's the open-air hangar you may have seen this afternoon, where we do the gauging test, which is primarily a fueling activity. The comp plate is the compass swing. For those of you familiar with aeroplanes, you have to do a compass swing on the airplane, so we move it to a far side of the facility. We do the compass swing on the airplane, move it back into the hangar, where we do the finalization. And right now, this is where we'll put the engines on. When we're up to rate, we'll put the engines on earlier in the process. But right now, the engines will be hung when the airplane enters the flight hangar. From the flight hangar, we do the final operational test, and we hand it over to the flight test group. They go fly it. We assume that everything's fine, and so we then reach a point where, oh, by the way, along the way we paint the airplane in the facility you saw earlier on. As Allan said, very, very environmentally efficient facility. All of the Mobile facility will be LEED certified. For those who appreciate LEED, L-E-E-D, it's basically the global certification standard for environmental friendliness. And all the facility here is going to be either gold or silver standard on day 1. So we painted the aeroplane, we hand it over to the customer, who will inspect it. He will of course say this is terrific, and at that point we do the transfer of title, and the customer flies the airplane over the fence, as we say. Along the way we collect a little bit of money in the process, and we move on to the next airplane. Here you can see how all those bits come to be here in Mobile. In Hamburg, the logistics hub in the center is actually in Hamburg, Germany. And they're doing the same job for our facility in Shenzhen as well, by the way. They're collecting these major component assemblies, the fuselage parts, the wing parts, the tailplane parts. They're collecting the parts from the suppliers, putting them in a logistics hub, which could be centrally located or it could be locally. And we also collect the equipment, such as undercarriages, hydraulic systems, avionics. A lot of the avionics are very high-value parts, so rather than put them on a boat, we will actually fly them to a logistics hub from the supplier, and then we'll fly them from there to here or Tianjin or wherever to go into the airplane. There are some components that we don't want to ship all the way to Hamburg and ship them all the way back here. Engines, of course, being the prime example. The engines on the aeroplanes come either from the CFM consortium, that's General Electric and Safran in France, or they come from Pratt & Whitney in Connecticut. Either way, it's much more convenient for us to collect the engines together and pod them close to the facility here in Alabama. This is a great example of how we are helping the local area grow through our suppliers. The suppliers want to be close to a facility here, and already we've seen several suppliers have set up shop right here in Mobile to be close to us. So the engines, the seats, these will come directly to us here where we put them in the aeroplane. And you saw on the right there, the mobile assembly site, you saw the process, how that works, and you can see some photographs here of how the assembly line is working today and will work in the future. So here in June, in fact June the 18th this year, was the arrival of the first parts. And you can see in this photograph very clearly the jet blue tailplane. The tailplane comes painted already. And you can see some horizontal tailplanes coming as a pair on the jigs. You can't see in this photograph, but there were also here were pairs of wings coming from the Broad facility in the UK. So the first parts arrived here June 18th, and those now constitute the first airplane that you have seen in Station 41 this afternoon. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it means to Alabama. But Mayor Stimson and George Talbot here can tell you a lot more than I can about how important it is to Alabama, and especially to Mobile. It's over 1,000 direct production-related jobs through Airbus and through our subcontractors. There have been over 3,000 people fully employed for the last 3 years on constructing this site. The annual economic impact of the state is over $400 million additional gross domestic product, $172 million of earnings, and the equivalent of 3,700 equivalent jobs through cascading our full-time jobs down through the pipeline. Here in Mobile County, $348 million of additional GDP, $145 million of earnings, and 2,900 of those 3,700 jobs here locally in Mobile. Perhaps most important of all, to many of us, and I hope you, is this is providing a great future for our kids in this area. I can't tell you how excited the kids are when we work with them around here. David Trent's engineering organisation has been doing a lot of work with local schools and with the Exploring facility, the Science Museum, or not museum, the Science facility down here in downtown. And we, Airbus, as many people in our industry, we put a lot of emphasis on generating the next generation, not just of leaders, but of everybody who's going to work in Airbus and in our facility.